We should all reside in the parish of Michelle. It would be a refined, simpler life, embracing the best of earlier eras. High priestess of all things vintage, an aesthetic marvel of fluid and sometimes erotic dance. For Michelle, the 1950s was not about ongoing food rationing, the Cold War, the blacklist, the waterfront strike, or New Zealand getting bowled out for a measly 26 runs. No, indeed, for Miss Vintage New Zealand 2012, that epoch-making decade was one of rock and roll, pin curls, and gas-guzzling classic cars. All hail this nostalgic philosophy. Michelle Parish.
All hail the pin curl. Woohoo! Thank you, Richard. Okay, let me whisk you through some of the key looks that I'm passionate about from some of my favourite eras, from the 1930s to the 1950s. Streamlined, classic, simple sophistication. The golden era Hollywood-influenced designs. Female fawn returned to the 30s. Clothes were feminine, tidy and neat. Like classic glamour stars like Ginger Rogers in this beautiful halter neck evening gown with a low V back was one of the key looks in this glamorous evening style of gown. Also, the bias cut, originating in 1922. It became the rage in the 30s, though. Look at Jean Harlow here. She's sensational in the bias cut. This was a still taken from a movie called A Dinner at 8 in 1934. The bias cut was cut, the cloth was cut on the bias, and it hugged the figure through the body with gentle flowing pleats down to the floor. The iconic designer Coco Chanel brought knitwear into fashion, and it was a very, very neat and tidy, wearable two-piece suit, elegant and relaxed. Side fastenings, the zipper. Coco's great rival, Elsa Schiaparelli, was the first to have designs with visible zippers and famous for introducing shocking pink. She collaborated with Dali and resulted in one of the famous iconic dresses in 37, the lobster dress. There's Elsa Schiaparelli there. So the 1930s were about glamour and taking fashions from day to night, and it was all neat and tidy, but with beautiful florals and lots of motifs and brocades. Here we have Lana Turner here. She's sporting a rather nice buttoned-up sweater fitted to the bosom. It was scandalous. Here she is in the 1937 movie They Won't Forget, and boy, you won't forget that image. It became all the rage in the late 30s with all the girls and most certainly the guys. The pantsuit, the great Marlene Dietrich. Classic stars like Katharine Hepburn and Marlene Dietrich just rocked the suit. Sometimes even more so, better than most men. She looks spectacular. Here we go. Okay. Sew and save, make do and mend. Less is more were slogans of the 1940s. High waistlines, knee-length hemlines, utility fashion. Clothing became more practical. Make do and mend, a campaign launched by the British government encouraging you to go through your wardrobe and mend those garments, be thrifty, and sew and save. This label, the civilian clothing label, CC41, placed in garments, showing manufacturers had adhered to the strict regulations. Women were at work, and things were, down to the bare minimum. Women always tried to keep their appearance, the standard of their appearance up. Here, this woman, she's obviously out working, as you do. She's popped a turban on when you're having a bad hair day, ladies. Just pop a turban on. Or she's preserving that freshly pin-curled set from the night before, ready for the evening's dancing. Fashions it was the utility fashion, so there was knee length, 3 buttons only on most suits, A-line skirts, simple and plain, but most importantly, fabric wasn't wasted. No fancy pleats and no detailing. Hairstyles were so glamorous. Pin curl sets, brushed out into beautiful waves. It was an amazing accessory to enhance some of the utility fashion that probably wasn't as glamorous as like the 1930s styles were. Are my seams straight? I'm not sure, but silk and yeah, I am wearing seams actually, Richard. Thank you very much. Are my seams straight? In the 40s, Britain's silk and nylon production ceased, and silk was for parachute production. And seams were drawn on with the help of a trusty friend with a steady hand. Coming into the late 40s, Paris, 1947, the new look. This classic photo that probably a lot of you have seen. In Paris, Christian Dior launched his debut haute couture collection, and it was a welcome change from the imposed fabric restrictions during the World War II. Julie Lynn Charlotte, a young woman who wanted to be in fashion but had no money, and she couldn't sew, but she had her mother who had a clothing factory, and she found some felt. And it was the only fabric wide enough to cut a full circle skirt without making seams. She went on to make some of the iconic skirts of the 1950s, and some of these are beautiful pieces of artwork now, still available if you have thousands and thousands of dollars to collect a Charlotte piece. Certainly on my wish list. The 1950s circle skirts were born, they're glorious patterns, lots and lots of fabrics, and Julie Lynn designed her skirts with lots of motifs on them. I chose the poodle skirt because we all know this. You get invited to a 1950s dress-up party, most girls go with a poodle skirt and bobby socks. So it's just as popular now these days. The 1950s, I wish this was my dress collection, Janine, but it's not. The cinched-in waist, the waspy waist, the full skirt, lots and lots of fabric, enjoying lots of colour and pattern. The 1950s were really, really colourful and feminine, and one of my favourite eras. Foundation garments. Another favourite picture of mine here, the bullet bra and the girdle. Every girl needs a bullet bra, honestly. And your girdle must have suspenders there to hold those seams up. Nylon stockings. Thank you very much.
Bravo, Michelle.